Some people might disagree, but the weakest part of the C6 Corvette is the front end. My problem has been that I haven't found a front lip or a front splitter that actually looks decent on these things. It's just a little bit soft. It almost looks like a smiley face. Reminds me a little bit of the old Camaros, and it just lacks the aggressiveness a C6 Corvette should have. Now, of course, this doesn't apply to the Grand Sport and the Z06, but us base model guys, we're dealing with a little bit of a weak front end. Particularly at angles like this, it always makes the lower portion of the front bumper look more narrow, which is not good. Well, today I got a bit of a remedy for that issue, and we're going to get it installed today. Well, my first problem is that I can't get the jack onto the front of the car anymore. And my quick jacks are too tall too, so... Extreme Online Store has a couple of different options. This is the gloss black ZR1 conversion splitter. A lot of people run the extended splitter. I just think it's a little bit too much on this car. I like subtle, simple, basic. And surprisingly enough, the ZR1 conversion splitter is less obnoxious than all of them. I hope the slanted stance gives me enough clearance to get this thing on. I can't get the jack onto the other side. We got some very basic instructions, some cheap two-sided tape, and screws. For the installation of tin spoilers, I like to use nuts and bolts and some big washers. In this case, my goal is just to get this car to Cars and Coffee in the morning, which is just a mile down the road. So when I get the front splitter in place, we'll put bolts in later. Whatever the functionality of these splitters actually is, they do grab wind, and if you're really rocking and rolling, they're going to rip these screws right out. So definitely want to use some bolts with some big washers. I gotta say right off the rip, I'm not super stoked with how it lines up. The center, first of all, is not actually the center. Something didn't look right, so I actually took it off and then relined it up and put it back on, centered on the bumper, and one side was way off. So you just actually kind of have to mess with it a little bit, get it to line up visually, and then that's kind of as good as it's gonna get, honestly. All right, let's look at this thing together. A little nervous. Yes, sir. That is what this car needed. Holy. It doesn't photograph that well, to be honest. It looks way better in person. It's the wide angle lens, I think, that does it. That's what does it. It makes it look so narrow on the edges. It doesn't look like that in person. What I do is get this thing out on the road and get a picture of it at a distance. The close quarters wide angle just does not do it justice, but it looks really good. It's centered as good as I could get it here. And then on the ducts here, while trying to keep it as close as symmetrical as possible on the ends. See, there's just a little bit of a gap here. I don't know if it shows up. And then just slightly less gap on this side. This is lined up as good as I could get it based on the center line, but also based on how it lines up with the ducts and the fog lights. On both sides, I tried to make it as even and symmetrical as possible. The problem was, though, that when I lined the center, the very center portion of the lip up with the center of the bumper, it was too far off to one side. It wasn't even close. So I lined it up as close as I could in order to make it look as good as it could be, and I was pulling and pushing and manipulating the lip as much as I could without distorting it to where it would still look good, but all the tape would still line up properly and make contact. It's still not perfect, but combined with the screws on the underside, I think it should hold pretty well. And that 3M tape that I use, the same tape that I use on the rear spoiler, is very strong. Even just mocking up this splitter, trying to get it off to move it, it was pretty locked into place. So I don't think it's gonna go anywhere, but we'll see how long she lasts. While I was working on some things in here, I got another little installation project done. This is something that I was holding off on a bit, but I just decided to go for it. I went ahead and installed these front LED side markers. They're actually kind of sick. I think I'm going to end up slapping a little bit of tint on them. It's pretty freaking bright, I must say. Installation of these is really super easy. You turn the wheels one way or the other, allowing you access into the fender well, pop the old lenses out, take the bulb out, plug the new LED into the old bulb socket, and pop the lenses back in. That's literally it. Boom. So before we button everything back up, we better check to see if it works. Yes, it does. A little bit of a difference. This is tinted with vivid vinyl smoke tint. It's a light smoke. And I do like how subtle that was compared to the bright orange, but that's pretty dope. I finished another project that I've been wanting to do for quite some time. When I first got this car and I installed the MGW short throw shifter, I made my own shift boot out of this leather. I purchased a bunch of this leather thinking it was a little bit higher quality than it is. Well, it's not that it's bad quality, I just don't really like the texture, so I made myself a new one. I actually forgot that I had some of this leather laying around. Now this is some high quality, full grain, very thick, heavy leather that I've had in the garage for quite a while. Actually, years. Turned out really good. Of course, the Speed Culture shift knob looks dope as well. Perfect package. 20 years old, and the interior of this thing is still sick. All right, let's take a look at this thing. It definitely makes a hell of a difference. Adds a little bit of depth, makes the car look a little bit lower, a little bit more aggressive in the front end. Really just changed how the front end of this car looks, especially looking straight on. Huge difference. Like I said, it doesn't fit 100% perfect. You got to play with it, you got to tweak it a little bit, but nonetheless, it looks pretty darn good. A front splitter is what the C6 base needs. It's what it's missing for sure. Now, if I was to design my own front splitter for the C6 base, it wouldn't look like this. There's only one on the market that looks similar to what I would do if I were to design it on my own, but it's like $500. It's not painted, and like I said, it's not exactly how I'd want it, so I wasn't going to waste the money for $150 or $180. This one is fine until I get up the gumption to do something on my own. I almost forgot about the new LED side markers though. Let's turn these things on. Those are actually pretty sick. They're definitely bright enough for daylight hours, so they look really good right now. We'll see how bright they are at night and see if we got to put a little bit of tint on them, but right now, daytime, they look pretty sweet. And they pair well with the LED rear side markers. That's definitely a good package. They work well together. It retains the timeless design of the C6, but it adds a little bit of a modern touch to it. Can't complain about that. Of course, a bunch of people are saying, we need to see more of those taillights, we need to see more of those taillights. Here we are. Still really pleased with them, like them a lot. I did get the tamper-proof hardware, guys, so stop talking to me about how easy they are to steal. And we got them mated with the Vetlight's sequential harness, so I think that looks pretty dope. Already got a bunch of stuff done to the C6 Corvette, and people are starting to ask me for a full breakdown of what we've done up to this point, so stay tuned for a video like that. I hope you guys are interested in that kind of stuff. That's it for today though, guys. I appreciate you watching, appreciate you following along. Subscribe if you haven't already. We'll see you in the next one.